When my father called me this family's biggest shame, in front of 20 relatives at Christmas, I didn't cry. I just placed my folded military uniform on his immaculate dining table and walked out into the freezing night. He wanted a daughter who would marry rich and stay quiet. Instead, I became the first female paramedic in my combat unit to deploy overseas. For 7 years, my family treated me like an outcast, the wild daughter who ruined their perfect reputation. They had no idea where I actually went, or the quiet nightmare I survived in a desert valley thousands of miles away. But today, at the state capitol, my father is sitting in the front row. He thinks he's here for a civic award. He has no idea his shame is about to step onto the stage under a spotlight, framed by 4-star generals, to receive the Silver Star. My name is Elena Miller, I'm 31 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my life was measured by my father's strict standards. To the outside world, Richard Miller was a respected real estate developer, a pillar of high society who demanded absolute perfection from his children. My older brother became a corporate lawyer, and my sister married into wealth, playing the exact roles assigned to them. Then there was me. I wanted a life of purpose, not polite society dinners. When I announced my decision to enlist in the United States Army as a combat paramedic, the tension in our family exploded. The breaking point came during Christmas dinner in front of 20 relatives. My father stood at the head of the table, his face flushed with anger, and sneered, "You are this family's biggest shame. You're throwing away your future to roll around in the dirt." He expected me to break down, plead for his approval, or apologize. Instead, I stood up, placed my folded military uniform neatly on his immaculate mahogany dining table, looked him dead in the eye, and walked out into the freezing night. I was done seeking his validation. After that night, I severed every single tie. I blocked their phone numbers, removed myself from family group chats, and walked away from my father's trust fund without a second thought. While my siblings were busy attending country club galas and collecting inherited wealth, I was waking up at 4 a.m. every single day, enduring grueling physical conditioning and intensive trauma training. I traded silk dresses for heavy combat boots and tactical gear, learning how to save lives under extreme pressure. Deep down, a part of me knew my father believed I would quit within a few weeks and come crawling back, begging for his forgiveness and financial support. But every time my muscles burned and exhaustion threatened to knock me down, his cold words echoed in my head, driving me to push further. A comment below with the city or state you are watching from. I love seeing how far our community reaches. Within 2 years, I had earned my place as a primary combat paramedic in an elite rapid deployment infantry unit. I was ready for whatever lay ahead. 6 months later, my unit deployed to a remote, treacherous mountain region overseas. It was a world entirely disconnected from the air-conditioned boardrooms and manicured lawns of my past. Here, the heat was suffocating, the dust settled deep into your lungs, and every single step outside the perimeter wall carried lethal risk. I was assigned to an infantry platoon as their primary combat paramedic. Out there in the dust, no one cared about your last name, your family's bank account, or what car you drove. The soldiers around me didn't judge me by my father's standards. They trusted me with their lives, and I trusted them with mine. They became my real family, the chosen one bound by loyalty rather than blood. It was mid-August when we received orders for a routine reconnaissance mission through a narrow valley known for sporadic insurgent activity. The sun was beating down relentlessly as our armored convoy snaked along the dusty ridge. Everything seemed calm, almost peaceful, until the lead vehicle hit a concealed explosive device. The deafening blast shattered the silence, rocking the earth beneath us, and instantly plunging our routine patrol into a nightmare. Before the dust could even settle, heavy automatic gunfire erupted from the surrounding cliffs, pinning our entire squad down in the open valley. The metallic tang of gunpowder filled the air as bullets rained down like hail, striking the rocks around us. Over the chaotic radio chatter, I heard the desperate cry every medic prays they never hear. "Medic up. We've got multiple men down." Without a second thought for my own safety, I grabbed my trauma kit and unlatched the heavy armor door. Incoming rounds slammed into the metal frame just inches from my head, but adrenaline completely erased my fear. I sprinted into the direct line of fire, low-crawling through sharp gravel to reach the lead vehicle. Our squad leader was bleeding heavily from a shrapnel wound to his thigh, his pulse rapidly weakening. Bullets kicked up dirt all around us, hitting my rucksack as I knelt over him. Working on instinct and muscle memory, I applied a tourniquet, packed the wound, and administered emergency plasma under relentless crossfire. When a second soldier collapsed just 20 yards away, I shielded his body with my own while dressing his wounds, dragging him toward the cover of a boulder. For 45 terrifying minutes, I moved between the fallen until air support finally cleared the ridges. Against all odds, every single soldier I treated survived that afternoon. 6 months after that grueling mission, my tour of duty ended, and I returned home with a faint scar along my collarbone and a heart full of quiet pride. I chose not to reach out to my family. I had rebuilt my life entirely on my own terms, establishing a quiet routine in a new city while continuing my service as a reservist. Meanwhile, back in my hometown, my father and siblings continued their usual routine. From mutual acquaintances, I learned they were still telling people I was the family's greatest disappointment, speculating that I had either dropped out of the military or was working some dead-end job in obscurity. They were convinced my life was a complete failure without their wealth and guidance. Then, an unexpected letter bearing an official Department of Defense seal arrived at my father's gated estate. It was a formal invitation requesting the presence of Richard Miller and his family at a special statewide military honors ceremony at the state capitol. The letter offered no specific details, leaving my father to assume it was a minor civic event honoring local supporters. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to attend. The morning of the ceremony, the state capitol auditorium was packed with news cameras, high-ranking military officers, and distinguished guests. My father, along with my brother and sister, walked in expecting a routine civic gathering where local donors were recognized. But as they sat down in the front row, my father began looking around, clearly confused by the presence of 4-star generals and heavy security detailing the perimeter of the room. The brass fanfare sounded, and the master of ceremonies called the room to order. Ladies and gentlemen, today we honor extraordinary valor under fire. I stepped onto the grand stage in my crisp service dress uniform, my posture tall and unyielding. Through the bright spotlights, I caught my father's eye. His face turned ghost white, his jaw dropping as he recognized the daughter he had written off years ago. The narrator read the official citation aloud, describing how a combat paramedic braved intense enemy crossfire in a narrow valley to save the lives of 4 wounded soldiers, shielding them with her own body. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of her life, the President of the United States awards the Silver Star to Sergeant First Class Elena Miller. As the general pinned the medal onto my chest, the entire auditorium erupted into a standing ovation. My father sat frozen, utterly shattered by the realization of who his shame had actually become. When the applause finally died down and the reception began, my father slowly approached me, his hands trembling and his pride completely shattered. My brother and sister stood awkwardly behind him, unable to look me in the eye. "Elena," my father stammered, his voice lacking any of its old authority. I had no idea. We should celebrate this as a family. Let me host a dinner for you tonight." I looked at him with a calm, steady gaze, no anger, no bitterness, just absolute clarity. 7 years ago, you called me this family's biggest shame because I chose a life of service over your approval, I said, my voice echoing with quiet authority. I didn't earn this medal for your social status or your dinner parties. I earned it for the men and women who stood beside me when it actually mattered. He reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back, adjusting the silver star resting on my uniform. "I wish you well, Richard," I added softly, using his first name for the very first time. "But my family is standing right over there." I turned my back on him and walked toward my squad members, leaving him alone in the crowded room. If this story reminded you that your worth is never defined by those who doubt you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Comment below with your thoughts and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for watching until the end.